Hamas again refuses to free hostages. Here's what U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said yesterday. Hamas has once again refused to release even a limited number of hostages to secure a ceasefire and relief for the people of Gaza. Hamas doesn't want to end the war. Hamas wants to end Israel. The more hardship for Gazans, the better for Hamas, as it galvanizes support against Israel in the international arena. On October 7th, Hamas murdered children in front of their parents, and parents in front of their children, literally getting high on the pure evil in their suffering. This war cannot end with Hamas on its feet. We need the 3 Ds. Hamas must be destroyed, Gaza must be demilitarized, and the Gazan society must be de-radicalized. That's why Israeli troops have continued during the last month to fight in northern Gaza. The remnants of Hamas embedded themselves in that area, which is the closest part of the Gaza Strip to Israel, in order to continue their guerrilla warfare against Israel. They embedded themselves amidst civilian population, which they do not allow to escape the fighting. Over the last year, Israel took apart Hamas's battalions across the Gaza Strip. Israel's troops did it bit by bit. Hamas's capital in Gaza City first, then the Central Strip and Hamas's stronghold in Khan Yunis, and finally in Rafah, Hamas's smuggling lifeline along the border with Egypt. However, there's still a long way to go to destroy the endless infrastructure of death which the Hamas had built underground, the infamous tunnel network. Furthermore, the remnants of the Hamas are trying to rebuild their strength in Gaza's north and recruit youngsters and new fighters for whose services they pay with the money they make from selling the humanitarian aid. Hamas is trying to rebuild its military bases in Gaza's hospitals, just like they did before October 7th. When Israel's special forces entered Kamal Adwan Hospital last week, they captured 100 Hamas terrorists, including some who took part in the October 7th massacres. In the last month, Israeli troops have caught 300 Hamas terrorists in northern Gaza and killed 900 in total in combat. During the fighting with Hamas, Israel coordinated with the medical staff at the Gazan hospitals to have their ambulances evacuate the hospitals for 2 reasons: to make sure that the unrelated Gazan civilians do not get hurt, and also to make sure that these ambulances do not cynically get used to transport terrorists. Meanwhile, Israel delivered literally tons of aid to the area, tens of thousands of them. 372 trucks carrying humanitarian aid, mainly food, entered the northern Gaza Strip since June. 30,000 liters of fuel were brought to Kamal Adwan Hospital, and blood and medical supplies to Al Adwa Hospital. Auda Hospital, my apologies. In fact, Kamal Adwan Hospital's director asked for help from Israel, and indeed, Israel helped repair the hospital's main generator and oxygen generator, ensuring that patients' oxygen supply will be continued. At the same time, there are again reports that Hamas is preventing civilians from evacuating, and as we had previously discussed, medical staff in northern Gaza are complaining that Hamas is cynically abusing their facilities. Now let's take some questions from our audience watching live on social media.
Thank you, Ruth. An official in the Prime Minister's office confirmed that the Prime Minister has offered millions of dollars to Hamas terrorists if they release the hostages. What are your thoughts on this?
My thoughts are that this is an absolute tragedy. Why? Because not one Gazan civilian found the courage the strength, the moral clarity to come up and say, here are the hostages, or here they're keeping hostages. Not one. Furthermore, the Israeli government and other factors are offering money, offering free passage, offering many, many things in return for information about the hostages. And this humanitarian act is not being done. My thoughts are that moral clarity is the furthest thing away from these Hamas terrorists, and that this is despicable and should be challenged by the international arena. Everybody in Gaza who has an inkling of an idea where the hostages are kept, these are people kept underground in horrific conditions for over 1 year, against any international law or any framework of humanity. Come out, reach out, and say, there are hostages here, and save them, and save your people.
Right now, there is a disagreement between the United States and Israel over the amount of humanitarian aid that is reaching northern Gaza. Is enough aid getting to northern Gaza? Do you know how much and what the situation is that the U.S. is asking Israel about?
So the situation at the moment in Gaza is indeed that not enough humanitarian aid is reaching the civilians. The question is why? Does Israel prevent humanitarian aid from going in? No. There are hundreds, approximately 700 trucks stuck on the border, not being actually collected by the humanitarian aid people in order to distribute these humanitarian aid products to the people. They're either working for the Hamas terrorists, or they are scared of the Hamas terrorists, or they want to portray Israel as an entity that is causing hunger and prevents from the humanitarian aid from flowing in. But in fact, the problem is that the Hamas terrorists, or rather the remnants of the Hamas, are using that precise humanitarian aid in order to strengthen themselves, not to help the people. On the contrary, they steal the humanitarian aid, and this is what they sell to get money to recruit more young people. Gazans who will be killed by the IDF because they are recruited to shoot at the IDF. That's the tragedy with the humanitarian aid in Gaza.
This is a question from our live stream. UNIFIL, the UN forces in Lebanon, have claimed that Israel has attacked them. What's going on in there in Lebanon?
UNIFIL has been in place, so-called in order to keep the peace between Israel and the Hezbollah, or rather the Lebanese, the southern part of Lebanon, for the past 18 years. What they're supposed to make sure happens is that the Hezbollah moves up towards the Litani River, and they are disarmed by 2 UN resolutions that have been accepted and passed 18 years ago. Now, UNIFIL does not do that. Why? Some of them perhaps are not strong enough, don't have enough will, but some of them are actually being threatened and attacked by the Hezbollah. Israel does not shoot nor attack UNIFIL. It just does not do that. It doesn't serve Israel. This is not something that Israel has an objective to do in any way. On the contrary, there have been reports by some people in UNIFIL, they don't even want to say their name because they're afraid that the Hezbollah has used their offices, their stands, their equipment in order to use them against Israel. Not only that, but they've been said to have been hurt by the Hezbollah itself rather than by Israel. So upside down, watch what you're being told. Check, and it's a good thing that you're asking.
This is a question from Ariel on our Instagram Live. Has the Israeli government defined what will define the eradication of Hamas in Gaza and the end of the war there? It could last for so long.
So first of all, This is a very problematic question because the battalions, the 24 battalions that have existed like an army structure of the Hamas have been destroyed. They've been dismantled. So there's no hierarchy. There's no organizational military force owned or operated by the Hamas in Gaza. However, there are remnants, not one or two, but many thousands of still Hamas terrorists operating in the Gaza Strip, stealing humanitarian aid, terrorizing the civilians of Gaza, frightening the people, preventing them from escaping the areas which the IDF is attacking, and warning ahead of time so that civilians don't get hold. And these operatives need to be eradicated, first of all, and also there is a huge infrastructure underground, hundreds of kilometers of tunnels. Their main use, actually their only use, is to wage a war against Israel, kill, murder, carnage, and burn civilians in Israel. And these tunnels need to be destroyed. This is not something that happens in one day. Now, the question is whether there will be some other kind of force, entity from the region, from the international arena, by Israel temporarily, that will take care of other issues pertaining to the daily lives while destroying those, or wait until all of those forces are destroyed. This is a little bit unrealistic because the tunnels and their destruction will take a very long time. So this needs to be still decided. But still, it is impossible for the IDF to move out right now, because the minute they will, civilians in Israel will be killed, will be massacred, will be carnaged. And this is exactly the point why we went in the first place, to prevent that.
Our final question today is from our Instagram Live from Michal. How do you find the way to be optimistic? I find myself getting pessimistic more and more.
Well, thank you, Michal, but unfortunately we don't have the privilege of allowing ourselves to put our hands up and to be pessimistic. First of all, I believe in God. So that gives me a lot of strength every day, all days. But over and above that, I want to tell you on a personal level, I believe in the peoplehood, the Jewish peoplehood. I believe in unity. I also believe in the good, the general good of people around the world. They will see that the terrorists in the region, the radical Islamists like Hamas, like Hezbollah, the proxies of the Islamic Republic of Iran, are not just against Israel and the Jewish people. They're against humanity. They're against the Western values that we all cherish. And this gives me optimism. You know why? Because we are on the right side. Thank you so much for joining me today. And we'll be live again at 3 p.m. tomorrow. Thank you.